All right, everybody. Thank you for getting in touch with me. I'm sorry. All right, everybody. Thank you for jumping on with us, taking the time with us. Kashawn couldn't be here for today. That is okay. Had some technical difficulties, but we're doing good. But as you know, I'm DeAndre. I'm part one half of the Sorry to Bother You podcast, and today we have a very, very special guest. I like to call a friend. Is pretty much nearly family. Almost cussed there, sorry, but nearly family. And this is Jamil. I'll say, Jamil, please introduce yourself and just give a little bit about it to the people.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Dre. My name is Jamil Stamschror-Lot. I'm not sure what to say exactly about my role or what I do in this world, but I'm a father. In the background, we just got done composing this shark puzzle. My daughter was very happy. We celebrated, so that was a fun moment. But in addition to that, I'm a partner with my wife. She's also my business partner. We put together a mental health agency just based on a number of different issues, which I'm sure we'll jump into throughout today's
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Okay. And so, Jamil, the first thing we always like to do, like I said before the podcast got started, is just kind of check on people's mental, physical, and spiritual well beings. On a scale of just 1 to 10, mentally, how are you doing?
Yeah, I appreciate this question. I would say I'm probably 5, 6 ish right now. Right now, just
Okay.
gonna self go at it.
Yeah, that's nothing wrong with that. It's always get better. I'm glad we can do that. And then I said mental. So physically, how are you doing then?
Yeah, probably about the same. Probably about the same. It's funny, like this stuff aligns.
Yeah.
Allergy. We're in the midst of allergy season over here in Minnesota with 30, 40-degree swings. It'll set you off for a while until things stabilize. So it throws off everything.
Believe me when I say I. No one believes me when I say this. I've never had allergies until I moved like to Minnesota and everything. So
Right.
now I'm like I'm feeling it. I'm like, oh my God, this is
Yes.
terrible.
It's rough.
Okay, and then spiritually, how are you doing?
Yeah, that spiritual. I'm not sure how to answer that question. I would imagine it's similar, but like, what would you say? How do you rate your
So
spirit?
so for me, as I think everybody knows this, my grandparents grew up in the church. I pray pretty much on a daily. First thing I do when I wake up is glass of water, pray for about 5 10 minutes, and then
Mm.
I'll just like everybody else, I'll scroll for a second. But I make sure I get my daily prayers, my daily talks in. So for me, I always say I'm at an eight, 8 or 9, just because I feel like I'm always on that spiritual journey and just getting better on a daily.
Mm.
Um, and then physically, I want to say I'm at like a 7 or 8. My gym just closed, so I gotta
Oh.
like I can't get into that form I want to, but finding a new one, getting on that balance, and then mentally, I'm at an 8 as well. It's just been a
Mm.
trying week, and there's always room for growth in my opinion. So doing pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. I know I'm not jumping in the Bible right away or the
No,
prayers in the morning joint. So yeah, I'm not sure. I probably would say it's probably in alignment with everything else. Probably 5 or 6. Could be better.
yeah, nothing wrong with that. I'll say at least it's
Yeah.
something that you can check in. Okay, so one of my first questions is, just to kind of ask and just give the people a little bit about who you are. Um, Jamil, where are you from, and how was it for you, just like high school wise, and kind of growing up, and then high school hoops. I just want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So from all over, it seems. Bear with me. I apologize in this podcast. I'm probably gonna sneeze a few times. I'm gonna need to blow my nose. It's terrible. However, I was born in Atlanta and swiftly moved to Louisiana, Oklahoma, Ohio, and then back to Oklahoma, and then made my way to Minnesota. I think by the time I was 9. So we had a lot of things going on, family wise, parents not really getting along, if you will. So so yeah, we moved around quite a bit, and so with that, it was difficult to really find like stability. Of course, your primary environment is just always unstable, and in addition to that, a big thing is friends. And so always trying to walk into a new school setting or environment where it's just like everybody else is kind of, or at least seemingly already linked, and it's trying to find your way in. for like trying to tap dance or perform, and can't really. I think when I think about that now in this moment, I feel like I probably couldn't form an identity because I was always moving from one region to the next. And anybody that's moved a lot, like just even from small St. Paul to Minneapolis, they're right next door, 10 minutes, if that. And the culture is totally different. So just imagine coming from the South to the North, people, oh, you talk different. That's not how you say it. Kind of looking down upon you. Uh, goodness, linguistically, but also in several other ways. So I'm a black male, bigger than most, taller than most. And so moving particularly to very white Minnesota, it was really difficult as we talk about the mental, spiritual, and physical. It was a challenge.
Yeah, I'll say as a person as well who has moved just about everywhere, I feel like I've touched every part of the coast.
Yeah,
I get that a lot. And so for you, because you are, for people who probably can't tell in the video, you are 6'6", 6'7".
right. Yeah.
Were you always just a bigger kid like than everyone else around you, or did the like growth spurt just hit just randomly?
I don't really have like recollection of it. In like I think when I started noticing was probably about uh fifth grade or so, if that. I think the other kids noticed more so than myself. But definitely by the time I got to junior high, I was bigger than most.
Yeah, I'll say yeah. That, like I said, I understand, man. I know how it is. And so going from the south to to the north, how was your like what kind of kept you going or grounded? Like what was some of your hobbies that you like to do just like early on?
Mm. Man, it's interesting. Like I said, I just had that epiphany. Like I feel like I was trying to find my identity, like many folks, coming through these various different stages, and spaces. And I don't know that I really had a hobby. And I enjoyed watching some cartoons, catch some X-Men, in the morning before you try to run off to church.
Yeah.
Video games started coming into the my space. Eventually, by the time I got to, I don't know, uh, just before middle school. I was a family that, didn't really seem like they had a lot. It was like everyone else always got it before me. And I was late to the game. So definitely got my Sega in. So playing games, and just man, just really just being an innocent kid, just wanted to enjoy life. Like I wasn't into sports. I wasn't into anything. Like I was just out there.
Okay, and then for you, I like how you said you weren't really into sports at that time. What drew you to basketball?
Yeah, so I think the others again noticing my height, and so that's the one thing, man. Coming up in many different environments, uh, like it was hard to find black men as like mentors and guidance. But when it came to sports, there was always it was a plethora of black men. So it was always fascinating to me. Like I couldn't find a black man to talk about, man, dating, right, or my feelings, or just how to do this homework. But anytime it was sports, it was always, I mean, black men from all facets of life, like the bummy type of dude that's like, I never played sports, but I can show you how to dribble. I can show, and I'm like, bro, like, get out of here. Um, so yeah, so I was in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis at the time, around the time it was deemed Murder-apolis in the 90s, because they had the most murders per capita. I mean, you can find it in Time magazine. It was just wild. So we had drive-by shooting drills at this school, Green Central. And I'm like, I've never seen this before. Drive-by shooting drills? Like, this is crazy. So, like, once a week, there would be a drive-by shooting, like cars just spraying across the block, kids out the park trying to run back into the school building. It was a lot. But in that environment is where there was a couple Black men that took note. Like I'm in the after school program, just looking back, probably giving my mom some time to like handle her business because she's like, I need y'all to be away. So they had video games and pool and things like that. But then there was basketball going on. I wasn't thinking about it, but the coach was like, "Man, would you like to join us?" And I'm like, "I'm desperate for attention. I don't have my father in my life. Um, Struggling with trying to find a friendship group. So it felt good to be appreciated. So that's where my journey began.
Yeah, and so continuing on that, how old were you when that started and happened? I didn't get the age. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it was about fifth grade, I would say. I think that's when I was pulled in.
Fifth
Fifth.
grade. Okay. And so then like starting off, no one realizes this. Everyone just thinks like when you're tall, you just get basketball. Like you just
No,
know it automatically.
right.
So how was like that stepping stone for you and like kind of what your journey and how it got you to the college and everything?
Yeah, that stepping stone. It's interesting, man, because there's some folks who do come up in this space, basketball that is, with like a whole like bunch of cultural capital, right? They have the knowledge base because their father played and their father has them in sports, so they got a bunch of people in the family that's just like all about sports. And for me, that wasn't the case. Like I said, my grandfather wasn't, or my father wasn't in the picture. My grandfather, he was in there for a minute when we lived with him in Ohio for a couple of years. He played football. So he was just always on everything, just over the top with it. But I didn't
Whew,
really have. You said what?
I said, "Whew, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, yeah. It was like you couldn't enjoy anything in life. Like I go outside just to play catch with the football. I just hear him yelling out the window, "Step into the pass!" And I'm like, "All right, you know what? I'm good. Like I don't. What are you talking about? Like I'm in the first grade. I'm just out here trying to play with the ball. Like everything had to be like 100%. So yeah, no, it was a huge learning curve because there was like physically there's things that your body like with the muscle memory, like you just kind of like you move in a way with the sport, like you kind of know the flow of it. And I didn't have that like that basketball IQ, let alone that body IQ. Like I wasn't really playing sports at all. So like, like I'm trying to master doing the push-ups and like just the basic, the stretches, like that's where I was with it. And so learning how to do all this other stuff made no sense to me. So it took a long time for me to kind of get it in the steel. By the time like through high school, despite having some success because of my size and my spirit, fighting spirit, like I still didn't have the fundamentals down. And then I think
Yeah,
by the time I made it to college, which I'm sure we'll get there, like it was almost too late because there was like
yeah.
the speed of it was so you needed that.
And so right before we kind of jump into the college room, I'll say for you going in high school, you said like you were catching up on the basics, you were catching up on things because you were a little late. Not saying anything like that, but like and like the basketball thought of it because most people when they say like, oh, I've been playing since like 4 or 5,
Yeah,
and you were like,
right.
yeah, I started like fifth, sixth grade, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, say like that. That's a hard way to catch up. So for you, um, once you got to high school, how was that, especially with that bigger expectations now of you're tall, you've been playing a little bit, and everyone has that expectation that you just about to go dominate and be great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was interesting. So I think I started growing into my body. So I started playing football. I remember watching this movie. Like I said, I was into watching food. I was into watching food, eating food, and while eating, watching movies. And so I remember Little Giants, that movie that came out sometime probably in the '90s. I was super, I don't know, inspired or excited to play football. I just wanted to play because of that movie. And so I didn't even know we could play as little kids until like we had moved to St. Paul and they had these leagues, and somehow I got roped into it. And I was having great success because I was bigger than most of the kids, and I don't know that I was faster, but like I was having a good time. And so like I started developing basically, right? Like the as if when you're bigger than others, they're always talking about your coordination not being together, and I've seen that. Like one of my teammates, he was much taller than me. He's from Minnesota. Went to Blaine High School. Patrick. So we're playing in high school in a travel league. Dude's he's just linky, right? And then he's way taller than me, but I'm just giving him the business because my body just had it more together than he did. So, anyways, fast forward, my man is just he came into his body in college, made it to the league, and was hooping for a minute. The NBA, that is.
Yeah,
And for me, like it was over. Like I wasn't going to be on that level. But over time, my point is, I started growing into my body and started learning things a little bit better. And so I think my height, my stature was significant, and like I was getting block shots, getting rebounds and things like that easier than other folks. And those things matter a lot. Um, as we began to age, I started seeing the maneuvers get more sophisticated. So you go up to the rim, you wrap it around, or so it wasn't just a simple straight up basic layup. That's easy to knock it out the park. So these guys are getting far more sophisticated. D Rosen or Allen Iverson, you when they come to the basket, and that threw me way off.
All right, and then so now you've got through high school, and then what high school did you go to? I heard you talk about Blaine. I know you said you went to school in St. Paul. So what
Yeah.
high school were you at?
Yeah, I was in St. Paul. So we transferred from Minneapolis. Once my mom got financially stable, we moved to St. Paul. She found a house, this program that you can get if you come into the house, we'll give you some money for it. If you stay in this program, live in a house for however many years. So that was huge, man. Because there's a research out there that just shows that like being in a house has less cortisol in your system, less stress hormones running in your system, which really erode and weather your body. And so the fact that was able to get the house and we stayed there from middle school through graduation, she's still in that house, brought a level of stability to level up. So in that environment, we were in St. Paul, just blocks away from Como Park High School, which anybody that knows St. Paul might know the Como Park Zoo. So it was only blocks away from the zoo. So it was a nice little spot. They were not known for basketball whatsoever. Just been terrible, just trash. Yeah. And I was going there because again, I was desperate for connection, man. I lacked the nurturing of friends and just, fatherhood and so many other things. Even my mom, like she was there, but like if you're raising three kids and it's all on you, like it's hard to be fully there. So man, I was desperate for, some attention, some connection, and had moved around so much. Everybody from junior high was going to Como Park from Murray Junior High. So I was like, all right, I'm going to Como then. That's where it's at. I didn't care about sports or anything of that nature. I was just like, where are my main friendship group? Where are they going?
Yeah, and so I heard you say that you were desperate for that attention, and so did sports and early on, especially early on, did that help like gather that attention that you wanted, or was it just like, all right, this is a small piece, like what else is out there for me?
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely sports. I mean, because of the realm of sports, there's so much that goes into it. Like the papers are connected to it. So the news outlets. So right, like I just remember like seeing my little 4 points that I would get in the game and being excited that my last name Lot was connected to the points. And it was just like, man, I'm getting notoriety, I'm getting love. I'm getting attention. And so it helped to to boost one's self-esteem, if you will, feel good about myself. Because it felt like outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot to like feel good about. Even if you were like a stellar student, which I was far from, I'm not even sure I would be that thrilled or pleased with it because it doesn't seem like the exterior really celebrates that.
Okay. And then I know you talked about as I am as well, going into college. I'm a JUCO product, so
Yeah,
I didn't get the big schools that everybody some of my friends or teammates had, or the schools
yeah.
recruited me and stuff like that. So I was just like, all right, whatever. Um, for you, like, what was your route like, and how you got to your 4 year school?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I forgot you did the JUCO deal, which I remember like JUCO. What is JUCO? Like community college. Like had no idea about these different realms. But for me, my journey was interesting, man. So I started growing into my body. I was like, I had a lot of tough experiences having acne, being, a bigger black male. In a highly white space. I was also trying to do really well academically, that my family pushed education. So I would like fight against the counselors who seen probably my whack grades. I'm sure there was a level of racism in there too, but they were like, "No, you shouldn't do advanced placement classes. You won't do well." And I was like, "Oh, just because you said that, like this is the type of person. Just because you said that, I'm doing it." So I'm struggling in these advanced placement classes, academically, but also just, I mean, socially, emotionally as well. I'm looking around, it's predominantly white folks. There's a few Asian folks, and it's usually the same black person who's like from Africa, which is cool, my friends, my African friends and my African roots. But it was just like, I can't connect. Where's my domesticated or my domestic black folks? They weren't here. And so mentally, I also struggle because I'm looking like, man, where are all the black folks? Oh, they're in special ed or just regular courses. And so it ostracized me, it isolated me again. So I found myself isolated again, like I'm not around people that I can somewhat connect with. Um, and so I was just really struggling.
Yeah.
um, and I think I may have lost track of the
No,
direction.
no. You're fine. You're fine. I was gonna say it was more so just how was your college journey and like what led up to it and how you got back to your 4 year school.
Yeah. So, man, I'm struggling with the tangents today. So yeah, so struggling mentally in that way, academically, I didn't do well. But I started like I think I was what I was trying to describe is I would displace that energy, and so I would feel embarrassed and worthless in academically in classes. And then I would like take it out in sports. Like I couldn't wait to get out there and play ball because I would experience success in that, and I would experience some level of appreciation in that space. And so I would turn it up there. And then also, like again, I'm taller than most kids, so I'm able to dunk. I had my first dunk in a game, my last freshman game in high school. So I'm just like, man, I'm feeling this. Like I'm there's something here. And then I'm like, all right, I'm starting to think by sophomore year, like maybe I can go to the league. Like I'm on the sophomore year, I'm on the varsity squad. And so started excelling, and then school started connecting with me when I got connected with this team called Howard Pooley, like a Nike circuit team in Minnesota, like the first and maybe the only at the time. And so that changed my life totally. So I wasn't getting recruited until I got on that team. And it was like by the time I got on that team, I'm a junior. I'm still don't really know the game like that. But I'm like in the space with folks who definitely know that game and cats that are like going big time everywhere. Like Chris Humphreys, he played for that team the year before me. And many other all-star, any all-star coming from Minnesota usually came from Howard Pool. They were a product of Howard Pooley.
And for some of the people who may not know what he's saying, it's the AAU circuit. The Howard Pooley is a huge team here in Minnesota still. The likes of Tyrus Jones. Who else was there? The last couple, I want to say, last three draft picks, lottery draft picks, top five actually were on that team. So that is a huge accomplishment and actually a huge team. Especially in like that 2000 early 2000 setting,
Oh yeah,
especially.
right.
So, so along with, I know how you said that you had struggling grades and you kind of got connected with that team.
Mm-hmm.
Once you seen that success, like what was your thought process? It's like, okay, I got a chance. I can now I see my success. I'm seeing that I'm getting recognition. I have a
Yeah.
chance. Um, what was your thinking from there on out? Like, how did you change the course for yourself?
Yeah, so it didn't really change too much because it was one of those situations where it was like too little, too late, and like the pressure was on. So like by the time I'm a junior, so just from going to the practice at Howard Pooley, right? Like just the first practice alone, I think it was like three D1 schools that started hitting me up. Like Northern Iowa, I know is one of them, and a few others. And so I'm like, this is crazy, man. Like this is wild. And then we're traveling places, and we're seeing like Coach K from Duke. We're seeing like all the top universities represented at these tournaments, and like part of me understands the brevity of this and the other part of me has no idea. um so needless to say, I'm trying to turn it up academically, but it's just not enough there, right? I did have to do some summer school. I did well when I had tutors, but I didn't have access to them at the time. So basically, I'm still kind of living this sort of pseudo life. Like I'm thinking like maybe something might work out, but inside I'm like anxious. I'm like scared, depressed, nervous. And then it comes to the end where I barely graduate. I got like a D in math class. If it wasn't for that D that I probably didn't deserve, I probably wouldn't have graduated on time. Close to that time, the college recruits from D1 schools started like they started realizing my grades were terrible. ACT score was whack, so they were just like, you know what? Sorry, we're moving on. Um, so I was terribly hurt. And then all the schools I started, the smaller schools, anything smaller than a D1, I was like, oh, in the garbage. Oh, JUCOs, man, I'm not even talking to them. Why are we talking? Like I'm not talking to you. Like I was like kind of feeling myself in a way. And so then I had to find my way back to the garbage can and find those. Hey, coach, sorry, I'm sorry about that. Can I talk to you about an opportunity to play at your school? So I found myself in North Dakota at a junior college over there. They had like, and it's crazy too, because we're talking about paying for everything to like now you're paying your way to play. And still like I'm not understanding what that means or what that looks like. They're saying they can give me some scholarship money to go play at this. It was like a Division 1 JUCO. So then there's like divisions to the JUCOs, which I was like, what is this? Like it was a lot. So I found my way 3 hours away from home in North Dakota, the last place I wanted to be. Everyone I thought was like just looking down upon me. Once again, it was embarrassing. I'm like, I missed out on this great opportunity, and I'm here in a small school. Like this is terrible.
Yeah,
So
and so and I know how that is, especially that like, oh my God, I was this close.
yeah,
The
yeah,
feeling of this close is always there. And then so once you get now you're a freshman on the campus at North Dakota. Obviously, I don't know how big that campus is. I'm guessing by my experience with a junior college, it was like a little bitty town, and the campus was the town.
Yeah, yeah, it was like high school all over again, except for the environment around it was cornfields and flat land, and it was even talk about white. It was even whiter. The only folks of color were with the sports team, which again, man, like I don't know if people can understand, like unless you're walking in this space, like it just does something to you mentally where you're just only there because you're an athlete. And so like there's this term called stereotype threat, essentially, where it's like you don't want to be the stereotype. And so you don't want to be late to work or to class because there's this negative stereotype that Black folks are always late. And then there's like this perception within the community too of like, man, you're making it bad for all Black folks. You're responsible for all the Black folks in the community. So if you do anything wrong, everybody pays. And so it's like an immense amount of pressure. It's insane. So then on top of that, I am I'm an athlete. So like it's like so many times I'm getting like, oh, you're only here because you're an athlete, or what sport do you play? It's like, can I just be a student? Because I am a student. So mentally, it just really messed me up.
Yeah, yeah, I'll say. And then on top of that, you are in a space now. Like you said, you're the only one, literally the only one there, and you know that you're only here for a reason. So then, like, now what are like how did you kind of navigate through that? Like, what was your thought process?
Yeah, like I said, man, I was embarrassed. I was livid. I was just like, you know what? Because I was carrying, like I said, these social sort of mental sort of pressure of like trying to do well, but not having supports to do well. There was moments where I would see some of my classmates succeed just because they had the knowledge. Like I had the ambition, the heart, I put in the hours, but I just didn't have the resource behind it too. And so sometimes that would show them academically, like it's just not fair. So I was like, at that point, there was a point where I actually started believing in high school that like maybe white people are just smarter. Maybe they're just smart. Like they just because I'm just like from the optics of it, all the white folks and I don't know if you had these friends too that like, oh, I didn't study. What you didn't study and you got an A, and I put in all this work and I got like a C or a D. And so seeing that over and over again, I'm just like, damn, you know what? Maybe they're just better. When I got to JUCO, I was like, F it. I'm mad. I don't give a damn. Like I'm like, I put my grades on the board. I put my ranking. I think I was like in my class like 272 out of like 374. So I'm just like, this is embarrassing. I barely graduated, had this opportunity to be on the stage, and I'm seeing some cats from my neighborhood that are on TV, like balling out. One of these cats I played against at Burnsville was playing at Marquette, like just balling. I'm like, I'm supposed to be there. This is crazy. So I'm like, it's over with. Like, I don't care about being embarrassed, about asking questions if someone clowns me, whatever. Like, I'm studying all night. And so I went from like a GPA that was barely a 2.0 to like getting like a 3.3 my first semester. And so from there, it was back on. Like all the colleges came back times two. And so they were recruiting like crazy. And then I would find myself now in this mental state again of like this social pressure of like, all right, how do I choose? Like, what do I do? Like, this is overwhelming.
Yeah. And then for all the people that don't know, Jamel, you can look this up. My man did go to a great school. Obviously, we see this how he's where he's at now. Um, and if you want to, would love to talk to you about that school a little bit. I know you only had about was it 2 or 3 years there at Marquette.
At Marquette, it was two. It was two. So
There's
that was
two.
also
Okay.
hard. Yeah.
Okay. So Marquette now you're at um, a school that you've now conquered the fear of not just the fear but the whole stepping stone of not just athletics but being in a space that you're unfamiliar with.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, being in a space that is the middle of nowhere, and now you've conquered that. You got past that stigma of okay, I'm not good at school, or the stigma that you thought you had about yourself that realistically you had it. You may have had it in you the whole time. So now that you're at Marquette, like, how is it now for you? Like, how was that? How was that for
Oh
you? Just stepping on
man.
that campus.
Yeah, so first visiting the campus, that was amazing. First of all, I was going to George Mason. When I, I was recruited by a number of schools, I visited a couple. George Mason was beautiful. East Coast, I mean, being on a campus, that green grass that you would see like in the movies. but it was eclectic. So like I've seen like, and I was just, my only thing was just beautiful women. Like I just love women. I didn't drugs, drinking, none of that stuff was just went like a beautiful woman. I just desperately wanted someone to love. I couldn't tell what people were like, oh, they're black, they're white. Like it was none of it was so diverse. It was just so beautiful. Man, I was like, this is where it's at. And it's by DC. We went to a club in DC. They showed me out. I'm just like 4 levels to the club. Oh, I'm going here. Came back, my coach was like, nah, it's not big enough. He wants credibility. He wants to like say I sent my players
Oh,
to schools. And so I ended up going to Marquette, which was a great trip too. There was, yeah, I mean, we're going to like the Brewers game. We're going to restaurants. We went to the NBA like game. We're like, special attention and people asking for autographs. So I'm like, oh, okay. D Wade just went to the league. So I'm like, all right, this might be the spot. Because if I go to George Mason, nobody knows about George Mason. I didn't even know about it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to Marquette. So I guess long story short, in one way, the season ended. We were one and done in the tournament. George Mason made it to the Final Four.
oh, that was the year that they did amazing.
They made it to the Final Four. Man, got the rings and everything. I'm like, now everybody knows George Mason.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Oh, that's hurtful. I was about to ask that. So I was like, wait, was that the same George Mason team that was like Final
Same.
Four, like did some amazing stuff? Okay, I remember
The
that.
same team, man, and the ACC just going to work, man. And I'm just like, it was where I wanted to be. I didn't care about nothing else, man. And I'm struggling at Marquette, man. I was struggling. But I
Okay.
will say in a different way when I got to the campus at Marquette. So like I worked everybody at my institution before. Like I'm running the guards like faster than them. I'm working like I worked in the morning at the gym facility for a job. I worked like 2, 3 jobs when I was in JUCO, and one of my jobs was at the gym. So I put in overtime. I got the keys to the gym, so I'm just putting in work. When I got to Marquette, man, that was I thought I had to work literally 100 times harder. Like we did one little baby workout, like 45 minutes. It was just like weightlifting. I came back to the lounge and I just fell out on the couch and I was like, I don't think I can do this. This is too much. This is insane. Like it was literally insane.
And I'll say so. Yeah, that jump is just probably the hardest thing for you, like to do. And so then I know you said how you said like academically was one of your things too. How was the
Mm,
jump for you academically from junior college, where I'm sure it's smaller, everyone can help you a little bit more, and you can like
yeah.
the access to people is just a little bit easier. To now you're at Marquette, it's bigger, it's a lot more going on. Like
Hmm.
you're in a student, you may be one of like 200 in a hall
Yeah.
in a room. So like, how was
Yeah.
that for you?
So I was super intentional about choosing my academic setting as well. So when I was looking at universities, I was looking for small settings. So I started learning like private schools have smaller settings. So while I didn't know Marquette was a Jesuit, like sort of Catholic institution, which is crazy before I signed my name on a dot, I'm like, what is this Jesuit business? And Villanova, I found out was similar. St. John's, I found out was similar. Maybe Syracuse. So it was really interesting because it was the first year too that they had moved into the Big East Conference. Um, so I identify schools that have small populations so that I could have an ability to do better in class. Also, too, what I noticed about Marquette, they had a higher graduation rate. So I was doing my research, man. This is crazy. So because I'm gonna get into imposter syndrome in just a moment. So I'm doing my homework to figure out my best environment for myself. Um, and Marquette had the highest graduation rate, with like the exception of Dwayne Wade at the time because he left to the league early. So I knew that I was in good hands for the most part. There was a Black woman academic advisor for the team. And so basically, your life is wake up, go to class, uh, go to the go to practice for like literally 4 or 5 hours, and then you're in the study hall after like training table. You bring your food, whatever, and you're in study hall. That's on repeat every single day. So I did still struggle somewhat, but we had support all the way, and we flew everywhere. So it wasn't no riding on buses for a long period of time. So it was like you're in there for the game and you're out. So it wasn't like you missed a lot of class time either.
Okay, I'll say hold on one. And so I know you brought up imposter syndrome as well. Like, how did that affect you when you were at Marquette as well, and just going through that whole academic ordeal?
Yeah, no question. I mean, anytime you go through a transition, particularly when you're going in the direction of your dreams, like of your goals, it is going to do something to you, right? It's going to mess with you. It's going to send you into like, man, can I really do this? Like, this is what I've been working for all of my life or forever. Am I ready for this? And so, in going into Marquette, while I did do my research, which I look back and now I commend myself, but the imposter syndrome would have told me that I didn't work hard enough to figure out what I was trying to do. And dealing with all this anxiety. So when I got there, like physically, things changed too. So the players were huge. It was like it was like the Monstars for real. It was like going from the little cartoon team to like advancing. And not to hate on my players, my guys that I played with, because those are some big cats too. I remember seeing like man 6'10" cat. Everybody on average probably was about like I don't know. A lot of the big guys are about 6'6", 6'7". But when I got to Marquette, that was like it was big. It was D's, like I mean 7 footers, like and so like I'm like in the middle, like so and it became my world, like being around big folks. So much so when I returned home, it was weird. I'm like, man, everybody is small. Like I was used to being around giants. So like from a physical standpoint, it was like, whoa, these cats are huge and they're doing it on this level. Like I'm watching these cats on TV, like playing against like NBA folks. Like this is wild. And at Marquette too, like so in the summers, so Marquette they play at the Bradley Center for their team for their games, and so the Bradley Center they have like this deal worked out where like if the Bradley Center is being used, like sometimes the NBA teams would use the Marquette facility, which is a brand new facility when I came into the space too. $31 million facility is beautiful. That's where we just practice too. And so, like when the Bradley Center was used, the NBA teams would come practice at our facility. So I'm meeting like professional athletes, like on a regular in the summertime. They're coming to hoop with us for like open gym type of deal. So I'm seeing all this stuff, and I'm like, this is next level. I don't know if I got it. So much so, like when I'm playing in practice, like it was like I forgot how to dunk. Like dunking was nothing, like for me. But when I got into practice, it was like I could barely touch the rim. Part of it too, they worked us like crazy. But the other part, it was like it was a huge mental piece. Academically, I also was kind of nervous, but they did a good job with getting me into some like classes where I could get my groove because I also was still trying to figure out my major, which I found out sociology was going to be my thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll say. And then I did look up some things. I do a little research here and there. So
Okay.
I seen that you played for the legendary Tom Crean. For the
Yeah.
people who don't know who that is, he had the likes of Victor Oladipo, Dwayne Wade, obviously,
Yeah.
a couple of your teammates, which was Wesley Matthews, as well
Yep.
as
Yep.
Steve Novak as well.
Oh
And I think
yeah.
I seen one more guy on there who was there with you, who had a was it Jared?
Oh, Jarrell McNeil.
Yeah,
There was
Jarrell McNeil.
Yeah, Travis Diener. I don't know if he how much he worked with, if he did Jimmy Butler. I think he might have been Jimmy Butler might have came on his back end when he left.
Yeah, so Jimmy came right when Buzz got there. I thought you were on the Buzz Williams train, but I think you might have missed it by like maybe a couple years.
I
So
did, I did.
so with that being said, how was it playing with the likes of those? You're like, hey, I am playing with NBA athletes. Like you're here. You're like this is the
Yeah,
stage you were looking for. This is what you wanted. Like what was now your demeanor and how it kind of changed? I know you said that was like a mental roadblock you had to get through,
yeah.
along with just learn how to work out. Like I don't think people realize that the high school compared to college workouts are two totally different things,
Oh yeah,
and the jump for you to do that is so hard.
yeah.
So
It's nothing. There's no comparison whatsoever. Like I said, I went to the junior college, and that felt like it was 10 times harder. Like I said, going to D1, it was at least 100 times harder. The thing about Coach Cream, man, his system, in my opinion, was terrible in the sense of like he would have like we would have to learn like literally 1,000 plays a season, and then on top of that, so like every practice you're learning like 3 or 4 new plays, and then it's like you might not touch them plays again for like 2 3 months, and then all of a sudden he might call the plays again, and it's like bro, like 36, I don't know what 30 what I don't know what it is. And so I struggled getting plays down. And part of it for me, I was a transfer. So some of these cats have been, freshmen watching this stuff, learning the ropes. Like I needed to come in and perform instantly. And so like I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about like, you know, the plays, being able to compete academically, my future. And then on top of that, like you're trying to manage all these major pieces and trying to like maintain a social life. And I'm not talking about just kick it. I'm talking about like when do I talk to my mom? Like when do I talk to my sisters or like just like basic stuff? And like people's expectations grow higher too. Like now I want to talk to him. Oh, now he thinks he's too good. And so it's like it was a hell of a lot mentally to balance all that. And I may have sidestepped in our original question.
No, 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 that was fine. I'll take that one too, because especially that I don't think we realize like that all goes into it. It's not just playing basketball. If it was just playing basketball when you went to a Division I college, oh my God, it's a
Yeah,
hundred times easier. But
right.
it's maintaining a whole different like you have a whole other life now. Like
Yeah.
along with you didn't even talk about the fact that yes, you have tutors and everything, but you have to study even more now
Oh
because
yeah.
you're like your major, you're picking it. You have to think about life outside, like I just the life outside of basketball is
Mhm.
the hard part. And I know that you didn't tell us your schedule because I've had friends that that did play some Division I too as well, along with you, and they were like, yeah, I practice pretty much three times a day. So
Yes.
individuals, and then you have like middle of the day practice, and then you have just regular practice. And he
Yeah.
was like, bro, you think that I have time to just go out and get a regular job? Like, no, you can't do that.
No, no, no. It's crazy too because they give you so many like, man, when you come in, I'm like, man, we're balling. Like this is crazy. The room is huge. Like my bedroom was huge. The apartment was just two of us in this big apartment. I remember going into the locker room the first time and seeing a Gatorade machine. I was like, oh, Gatorade in the okay, that's cool. Then I looked closer at the numbers. It was said 0.00. I said, what? Never seen that. Normally it's like $1.50 at least. So wait a minute. Does this mean it's click click pop 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 pop? I said no, it's free. This free Gatorade. This is crazy. I was man, I was like, I was in love. And then like we also had the like the new fancy facility, so we got like the a card that would have your money because they would put money monthly or weekly on it, so you can eat and you can buy stuff from the gift store. And it got you into the gym. So 24/7 access. I'm like, oh, to the gym, and there's a shooting gun in the gym. Like I can get in the gym anytime I want. It didn't take long to realize, first of all, you're not gonna be enjoying any of the perks. Like you'll barely be in your bedroom. So like that big bed and that like nice, you won't even be enjoying it. Secondly, um, you just work so hard, like you just can't like you don't even want to go to the gym. Forget 24/7 access. I'm done. I was done 24 hours ago. Like let alone coming back. Like I can't stand this place. So you begin to develop like an association of like, man, this again, like I can't keep doing this. And we're in Milwaukee. So the sun is down in our season by 4 o'clock. So you go into the gym, get ready for practice at 12. You don't get out of the gym until about 5. So, and we go down in the basement. The facility is amazing, but it's like you go downstairs and it's in the basement. So you don't really see sunlight until you come back out, and then there's no sunlight. So you only were experiencing, you know, some vitamin D for a good like maybe 3 hours, if that. But you're in class all day too.
So it's safe to say that basically you were a professional by the time you were like when you got to Marquette.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in a way, I mean, you're practicing harder than the professionals. Because then, like I said, we had the backstage access where, you know, I remember Stephon Marbury, like the New York Knicks came in right after they had won. It wasn't that they had won, it was Larry Brown was the coach, I believe. So it was Detroit, but then Stephon Marbury, I remember him just sitting on the ground. But I was seeing a lot of the professional stars on the ground just icing their stuff while the other players were practicing. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, these guys, like, and I remember talking to some professional athletes, like kind of this stage of my life, and there I'm just like, so wait a minute, like, did they work y'all? Like, he was like, no, it was in fact it was Eric Kendricks. He was saying like, no, they don't work. Like, they try to put you through a grinder in college. Like, they try to suck everything out of you. And college or high school or professional, they take care of your body. They understand the importance of preserving what you got going on here. So it was totally different, man. And
That's
so
crazy.
yeah.
That is crazy. That I had no idea. All right. See, and so the thing you find out from just talking to people. Okay, and so I also did a little, like I said, do a little research. I see that some of your top moments from your college career because I seen that you beat Duke.
Oh
First
yeah,
off, that's
yeah.
whew, that's amazing.
It was amazing.
Um,
Just to play them is amazing. Like, because everybody gets a shot, right? Just to play them.
yeah. Okay, and then you knocked off UConn. I think when they were number
Mhm.
two or number
Number
one
two in
in
the
the
nation.
nation.
Yeah, number two. Yep. Sent six players from that team to the league. Rudy Gay being one.
Hey, you can always say I knocked off Rudy Gay. People can never take that away from you.
The
And
funny thing is, I
so,
won't forget him because we were like beefing in that game too. Like he only got off like 4 points. He was like he was a highlight, like a highlight reel all day long. But for whatever reason, that game we had him frustrated and we were going at it. So like he gave me a couple of charges. The second one, he like pushed me intentionally because he was so frustrated. So I'll never forget that, man.
and then this is just a side note. You played in, and in my opinion, is the hardest conference that was probably ever
Mm,
created. The
yeah.
Big East at that time had what, six, was it 16, 12, 14 teams in it?
Yeah,
Um,
it was about 12 to 14 for sure.
and every year, if no one who remembers the Big East at this time, this is when they had like UConn, Louisville, Marquette, Pittsburgh,
Georgetown,
this Georgetown. Like this is
right,
when, yeah, this is when like all those teams were all fighting in like the top 10, top 15, and basically, if you were even at number 8 out of that 16, you were going to the tournament. Honestly, if you were probably 10 out of that 16, you were going to the tournament. That's
yeah,
how dominant that Big East that Big East conference was. And y'all were making it out. Y'all were 20-10, 20-11, like great
right.
chances. And then the last one I've seen that you said was just a very notable time for you was sitting down with your academic advisor. If
Mm.
you could talk about that, and I want to hear what you say about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and again, kind of along that line of the imposter syndrome. So I'm watching the, like, a lot of cats that played ball back in them days seen the movie like Above the Rim, right? Like there's all these hoop films and where you see Georgetown feature, you see like these big, Syracuse is a big school, St. John's, Rutgers. And so talk about imposter syndrome. It was like, man, can I do this? Like this is crazy, right? Playing against Duke, like I remember that tournament that we played. First, it was Texas Tech, which Bobby Knight was the coach. So we're going against Bobby Knight. Like it's like, and then on top of that, Dick Vitale was like he was doing the moderating, if you will, of the conference. So we dumped off Texas Tech. One of my teammates was clowning, like, man, Bobby's probably just smacking each of the players. Just how you, how you, as Bobby Knight, for those that don't know, was notorious for beating his players like physically. Like you could get away with that stuff back in the day. Probably
Yeah,
still.
I mean, he definitely choked out a player. I know for a fact he did.
No, it's obvious. The evidence is there. You could Google it. They probably got footage. And so we beat them. And then I remember Dick Vitale, he was a celebrity, like came to the locker room at the end. And he was like, "You guys are like lightning," And his like actual voice, I'm like, his voice is really like this. Like the linguistic piece is really on point. So it was super exciting. And then we played Duke the next day. Man, I was like, my body had this surge in it. I remember the coach kept saying like, don't be afraid of the title. Don't be afraid of what's on their chest. They're players too. Don't be afraid to lose. I'm like, what is he talking about? We're afraid to lose. And so I didn't do too well that game, but we ended up taking the trophy home and beating them. They were number 8 in the nation, which then I think ended up moving us to like number 7 or 8 in the nation at the time. So that was super like unforgettable.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, man. So it was an interesting deal, man. I think mentally, if I had someone like the academic advisor who wasn't just she was like everything. So like sometimes I go in there and I'm emotional, I'm messed up, or I'm just like I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like I don't know if this is my major. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the league. I'm pretty sure at this point, like having a realization, like it doesn't take long to realize, like yeah, I don't think I'm good enough to make it, right? And that was a hard reality because coming from JUCO in that tournament, like the national tournament, where we could have been like number 1 or 2, but we had to adjust to the caliber, so we lost by like 2 points. And caliber as a refs will let you beat each other up. Like coming from North Dakota, those refs were some baby A refs. I'm like, man, they wouldn't let you get away with nothing. I love to be physical. I love physicality. And so once I realized we could do it at that level, I was like, let's go. But again, it was a little too late. So at the end of the tournament, I remember an NBA scout coming over to me from Portland Trailblazers, And he was like, man, I just want to let you know I'm watching you. Where are you going to school next year? Whoop-de-woo. So then I'm really like, man, I think I can do this. So from like going from there to like almost a year later, after my first season, being like, damn, I don't think I can. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. That's a hard reality. After so long, you've been like advancing, thinking you're got it, and then realizing like, man, so close, but yet so far away.
Yeah.
So yeah. So ultimately, I think going back to like the academic advisor piece, I feel like if there was an actual mental health professional for me, that would have helped me to advance. I don't know if I would have went to the league, but I know I would excel much better than I did. But that advisor was powerful. Her being a Black woman, her showing me like I think sociology might be your thing, and I'm like, damn, you're right. I think you're right. Her advocating for me, her understanding what is the Black male sort of like having insight into that. She's from Milwaukee too. And so that was it was a tremendous asset to ensuring that we graduated and handled our business.
Yeah, and I'd say most people, for some of the people who are watching, I don't think that you understand how powerful that is, that especially to have a Black woman to come and help you and
Mhm.
not just not just push you, but also be there for everything you needed.
Yeah,
That's outside of some of that's outside your family, honestly. But you probably call her family now, but like
right.
just that's someone that's just like that. And so for her to help you with that major and then you came to that realization, my next question is, what, like in your mind after you're getting your graduation, what was your like, all right, what's next for me type of thing?
Yeah, so before that, talking with her, she was one of the people that I would come to, and so it felt like an essence of that embarrassing sort of moment of like, what am I doing with my life? Like, it is so crazy because that world, they're straight basketball. Like, it's almost scary to like they psychologically work you in a way where it's like scary to say anything outside of basketball. Like, everyone has to be obsessed. And I didn't function like that, man. I try to like even like the players, it was like people were kind of like they had like slave mentalities where they were kind of just like hoodwinked or brainwashed. It was like everybody was like a cyborg or a robot. Like it's like, man, does anybody think outside of this? And so it was like hard to even be human outside of like Cass is trying to walk so cool and be so like they can't laugh at nothing. I'm just like, man, this is boring, man. Like, can we enjoy life? Um, so man, I keep telling these narratives and losing losing my way and where I'm going. But what my advisor, so I brought it to her just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be able to go play league and or overseas because I thought the money was gonna be good too. I'm like, at least if I don't make it to the league, I'll go overseas. And I'm talking to some of these cats and really learning that a lot of these cats are fronting, and many of them are making like maybe 25,000 a year, right? Like starting off, not having any, and I'm hearing terrible situations. So I'm like, again, I'm doing my research. All right, I'm talking with professional athletes who are on a team or who are on the team or guys who played in the league who now help us coach and guys who played overseas. And so I'm rapping with all of them. What's your experience like? Man, we didn't get our money on time. The food was terrible. All I ate was soup and like cereal until I came back to the States because the food was awful. Like, man, you be prepared to hang your clothes up. They don't have any dryers. I'm just like, what? Like, you can't talk to nobody. You get lonely because nobody speaks the language. I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that for not even 50,000, let alone 25,000. I don't know if I do that for 100. And so I'm realizing, man, the money's not even going to be good, and I don't want to be in that kind of situation. And at the time, my heart for the sport was eroding because it just seemed so commercial. It was commercial. It was corporate. It was like, man, they don't care unless you're producing. You're worthless unless you're contributing to the team. And they will mistreat you and treat you in all type of ways. Don't be a walk on on the D1 squad. Like they will mistreat you. I talked with the advisor in advance before I was graduating. I was just like, I don't know what to do with my life because all I've been thinking about was basketball. Like I was set on like all or nothing almost. I don't even know if I can do anything. And she was like, let me show you. Come here. You could do this. What do you like to do? You like to work with youth? You like to like development, the community, whoop de woo. So she was like, look, you could be a program director here at the YMCA. They'll pay you 26,000 or whatever. Like you're overqualified for this. You could do this too. I was like, whoa! Like it blew my mind. I was like, get out of here! I didn't know I could do all this. She's like, yeah, you're overqualified. Once you get your degree, I'm like this is crazy. So by the time I graduated, I kind of knew I was going to be looking in that youth development sort of nonprofit sort of space. At the time, I thought it was going to be a kumbaya. We're all trying to uplift the community. I feel like this is going to be where it's at. So I was already, by the time I graduated, I was kind of on a mission to find something in that space.
Yeah. And so then, is that kind of what led you to come up with, obviously in the background, Creative Kuponya? Is that like what led you to that space?
Yeah, eventually it did. I mean, just again from where we started, Dre, and this dialogue, which I appreciate. I'm like, man, I feel like I need to just have a podcast just to have friends come together, man. I'm serious, man, because like a lot of my guys are like ambitious cats. So like two of my closest guys are principals of schools right now. And we're all about 38 to 40 something range. But like, what I notice is like rarely, and that's kind of how I'm built. Rarely do we come together, and I feel like because we're grinding so hard, it's like we barely have time to come back together and kick it. So I'm just like, man, if we could do a podcast just for us just to come together and kick it, maybe that'll get people
Yeah.
to the table.
Yeah, that's always good.
But yeah, so in a way, yes, it led to Creative Kuponya. Ultimately, like again, like I think the pattern of like going into something thinking what it's going to be, and it's not that, and then having to work harder, I think led to like Creative Kuponya. Like I envisioned like kind of working for myself at some point, envision uplifting people, particularly people who get pushed down by society. And I was just like, you know what? When I got into the nonprofit space, I was like, this might be worse than corporate because they come with a proxy or like the disguise of like, oh, it's about the kids, it's about the community, and like people are fighting over these dollars, like these crumbs. And it was like vicious. It was like nothing was truthful. It was like people were backstabbing, fighting one another over like some crumbs. And it was like, man, the last thing they could care about, people were manipulating documents, saying that they served so many people. And at the end of the day, the people who truly needed help were getting misled and getting burnt out, getting hurt. And that's what we wanted to ensure that we're not doing and not
And
displacing blame on them either.
yeah, and so just kind of give the people, a little insight about Creative Kuponya. What is it that you guys like? What is your mission, and what are you guys specifically, help with?
Yeah. So again, talking about my journey coming up, right? Going through Murderapolis, like no father in the home, like hard to find black men to talk to me about X, Y, and Z. Um, and so really like, you know, really just wanting my personal is the professional. So like having all those experiences led to like wanting to ensure that people get treated like a human, get treated appropriately. And so we're in the mental health space. So also like I talked to you about my mental struggles and academically in high school and these various different settings, they all make a play on your mind. And nobody talks about it. Right, we didn't have like sort of the spaces to process on it. Even if it wasn't just about the being the black male piece, it was like who talks about it in general. 130 folks take their lives by suicide every single day. Right? And the majority of those folks are white men. 70% are older white men. Why are we not talking about it? Why don't we know that 130 people take their lives? And on top of that, it costs every state, it costs every county, it costs them millions of dollars when people take their lives by suicide. And so what we also know is there's a lot of bias going around, right? Like if you're black, if you're a woman, if you're gay, if you're lesbian, like people are, if your body type is not the stellar athlete, right? Like you get mistreated, you get mislabeled. And so when it comes to mental health, one, I could have done better, like I said, academically, athletically, in all the facets of life if I had a therapist, particularly a black male therapist to rap with honor my reality, walk my same steps. So they're not just like making up some stuff or putting some stuff on me like, man, Jamil, why don't you just stop thinking about race all the time? Maybe that's your problem. Like, no, that would be a liability. I'm trying to protect myself. And so having someone to honor that, speak to that, and the other stuff would have been huge. And so that's what we want to do at Creative Kuponya is like, we're honoring the realities of so many people who have been pushed to the margins. Again, folks who English is not their first language, who are like different ethnic backgrounds and so on and so forth. That's why 85% of our therapists are folks of color, and it also reflects in our clientele, folks of color. So it does wonders when people start right there with the reality that I'm having versus like I'm having to like argue with you and convince you that this is my reality. Then like we're trying to make steps there. And in the process of trying to convince you of some stuff, like you're actually causing me some level of harm. I'm supposed to be coming here to get relief, not for you to like mislabel me, give me some drugs that aren't for me, give me a label that then messes up my opportunity to get life insurance. So sometimes, like life insurance, it seems like they'll deny you for like sneezing. Oh, you got a cold? No, no, no life insurance for you. So if they see you with a label, schizophrenia or some, I'm not even sure if that's the exact sort of labels that they'll deny, but they'll deny certain titles that you get. And there's nothing like, it's not even like a criminal record where you can get it expunged. Once you get labeled by a mental health professional, it's over. It's there. It's there for life. Until we do something policy wise to ensure that doesn't happen again.
And so just hearing that, because I've heard you say that before, but I didn't know that in that capacity, because I was like, hey, you know, and again, like, is that why sometimes people don't want to go to a therapist or go see a psychiatrist or anything like that? That someone that could label them, is that like one of the things that you are working against when it comes to, especially working with the population that you do work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at the history of mental health in this world and what it's looked like, people being in mental asylums and so on and so forth, locked up, put away, sprayed with water, all these crazy different things that have happened in the past, these torturous sort of things. And so yeah, this is why like we've gotten into this space is to like do away with the harm that comes because I can get mislabeled. There's a lot of black men getting schizophrenia tied to them. There's a lot of black men getting ADHD or other things that may not be necessarily what they have going on because they're not taking into account the environmental factors as well. And so yes, you'll get mislabeled. Kids getting pushed into special ed. I was noticing when I was working in a school setting. Again, I talked about this personally. Like I was like, all the black kids is in special ed or in like regular classes, not advanced placement classes. So much so that it started messing with my psyche, internalized racism, where I'm thinking I'm not good enough just because I'm black. And the reality is, it's something bigger happening here. And so yeah, we wanted to make sure we could. Our objective is to do away with that stuff because people aren't crazy. And that's the thing. Historically, we used to think like if you go to a mental health professional, it's only because you're crazy. Um, Things have changed so much so you would be crazy not to go to a mental health professional. However, it's kind of like dating. Like you're gonna get your heart broken a few times, right? You gotta until you find the right one, and then you're like, "Whew, it was worth the fight. It was worth the struggle. It was worth those lonely nights to find this right one." But a lot of times you'll have folks who like get burnt once and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not going back. Forget that. It was hard for me to go in the first place. I'm not going back to that." But it's important to find the right one. Sometimes it's helpful to find someone who has shared identities as you because it's like, all right, I can relax. Like I don't have to worry about trying to be white enough. I don't have to worry about my language. I don't have to worry about there's these things that just help for when I can go into space and just be myself. And that's what I need. You need to feel safe in therapy so you can work through some stuff. You can't be feeling like you're in threat mode.
Yeah. And so with your creative model, like that to me, that's creative, that's thinking outside the box. With your creative model, um, compared to other people that are like you've seen or noticed like therapists and mental health therapists that have been around, how would you say like I'm trying to figure out what I'm getting at. Like how would you say that that's helped you, or has that like kind of pushed people away from you? Has that like made more people come to you and be like, hey, like we got to kind of like pick and choose how we want to take people in, like just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's brought a ton of folks to us. I mean, it's interesting too because we broke away from so we both of my wife and I were working in she was working in the nonprofit mental health space. I was working at a school setting and we broke away from these traditional institutions because we kept seeing the same pattern of like blame Hispanic folks, right? Like this is what we see global like nationally. We don't have jobs because Hispanic folks, Latinx are taking our jobs. Well, I don't know about that. So let's just send them. Let's send them. Let's get rid of them. Let's send them out. Right. So we displace because we can't find an effective strategy, and then we make it theatrical. And so it's not about that. It's about technology is advancing, and we're taking money from our school systems and so on and so forth. Right. Um, so for the mental health space, Man, Drake, I keep losing. I keep losing myself. What?
You're good. You're good. You're good. I love this. This is great. This is a great talk. Honestly, this is
So you
amazing.
were
It's
talking
for,
about the
and this helps
model.
a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the model, why people come to us more so. So we came about at the same time that COVID struck. So we were a couple years before. And when we were coming into the space, we were coming in with the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion mindset intertwined with mental health. And so this is like, we're bringing this into the space. When you start coming with that, then you're like, you're unlocking some stuff that's never been touched on before. And so we're doing our thing. COVID strikes. Now people are like, "Ooh, mental health. Yes, this is what they were talking about, all right?" Because people are touching suffering like they never have before, and so our numbers doubled. Then George Floyd was murdered, and that was, a global sort of ordeal. And then our numbers quadrupled, because there was a lot of folks, particularly folks of color, who are just like, "Oh my God, I got to talk to somebody because I'm messed up," right? Because you're going into the workspace, all sorts of things that's being said and done. We know what social media is like when these things happen, and so we were positioned in a place that was much needed historically and with the new current events. To answer your question, yes, our numbers, because of what we put in place, have been astronomical. And so we've been growing since then. We have a huge team. I can't even count. We just hired somebody 2 weeks ago, and we got a couple other folks coming into the fold pretty soon.
Oh, of course. And then wanted to just also follow up on that. Just a couple more questions. I know you said you're busy for the day. Just follow up on that. You know, now that you see that you've had that impact on the community, what do you think like for the future for your impact, like how you've helped out people not only in just you know just the school setting, but just like the community around you. What do you think will happen for the future for you?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of when we talk about like a business model, so I've had to learn how to do everything, and I need to learn how to remove myself from almost everything in a way. So like starting your own business, you have to learn how to, like, you got to be the accountant, right? You got to be HR, you got to be tech. I didn't even realize I was tech until I met with some tech folks, and they were like, "Yeah, so we'll manage X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "Wait a minute, I've been managing X, Y, and Z. I've been a tech person all this time." Um, so you have to learn administrator. Like, I'm scheduling my stuff, I'm presenting, I'm creating my presentations, I'm content creation, I'm doing clients, and so I have had to learn and talk about, like, if you have trauma, or if you have history of pain and all sorts of different things, right? So coming from my environment, you would hear people say like, trust nobody, right? That was like a cool thing. Like, loyalty is everything, trust nobody. But that's kind of a trauma response, right? Like, somebody's hurt you. And that becomes a family sort of response, a community response. Don't trust anybody. But you have to trust people in order to, like, grow, to connect, to heal. And so I had to trust people, like with my accountant information. I had to, like, pass that on to somebody because I can't keep doing that and grow. And I don't like grow. I like, when I say grow, like, I mean be an effective business. I don't want to cheat Black folks or anybody who's been marginalized. I don't want to cheat them out of a service that we're saying we're going to offer. And so that's ultimately what I'm getting at. Like, how do we continue to create a system that is meeting people's needs, not letting people down in times of need? And many of our systems and many of our services out there tend to do that. It's like, take advantage of people, take money from them, or take their time, which is super valuable. I just jumped on 3 buses to come over here, or I had all this going on and I came to meet with you and then you didn't even show up. We can't keep hurting people like that. And so that's where I'm set on, is like, how do we, like, have a high quality product and that meets the demand and we're not hurting people? That's not easy because it's almost impossible. But when I feel like people sense our essence, and we've shifted a lot of different things that are non-traditional, that we bring employees into the fold because they're like, man, this is not like those other spaces. Like, y'all actually care. It's not about this; it's about the people, and so on and so forth. And so it makes a huge difference.
I'll say thank you, Jamil. That was amazing. I'll say for all the people that are going to be watching this, this is honestly like one of the most eye-opening interviews I've had it with
Mm.
anyone. Um, and then if you could, Jamil, just kind of put out like how can people get in touch with you, like, or if they want to, like, ever work with you, like what are some of the things, like how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. They can check us out at creativekuponya.com. You can make inquiries through the website. We monitor that all the time, and we field those and we respond back. You can check us out at Instagram. See, this is just shows you I don't do Instagram like that. But we got somebody handling that. But yeah, no, at Creative Kuponya for the Instagram handle, I think that's how it goes. And so you can check us out there, send messages through there. We tend to partner with agencies to provide therapy to their employees. We provide training to their staff, employees, managers. We take individual clients, again, professional speaking keynotes and things of that nature. We also take contributions. We're not a nonprofit, but we also take contributions for folks to help offset the cost for therapy. We like to try to reduce costs so there's no barrier, particularly for folks who have been pushed to margins. We also sell clothing, so you can find that on our website too. That clothing, all the profits go to offsetting costs for mental health, so reducing and eliminating it, and all the above. So yeah, man, that's how people can get in and get connected.
I'll say thank you so much, Jimmo. I really appreciate that. And for everybody, please reach out, talk to him. I'm sure this man is busy, yes, but he will definitely make time for people, as you can see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate that. But to everybody out there, thank you so much. We really appreciate you watching as well. Kashawn couldn't be here. Sorry about that, but we enjoyed the time, that we have with you as well, Jimmo. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dre. It's great.
Of course, of course. All right, everybody. We will catch you on the next episode. Peace.